Hello, everybody. Happy day after Easter. Still Easter here, but I know for the rest of the family, you're on to April 1st, so I hope you found some good pranks to play for April Fool's Day. Sarah wanted me to put together a little message about some of my recent health victories. So just wanted to let everybody know I'm doing great. Feeling better than I've ever felt, and I might be a little hard to recognize next time you see me. Um, I've been, as Sarah may have mentioned to some of you, I had to have a hospital visit a couple of weekends ago, and they kept me overnight, and they presented me with evidence that I had a second stroke. I was at breakfast and noticed something fuzzy in my right hand vision. And I only learned about my first stroke last month. Back in August, I was having some very severe difficulties last year with my left hand vision getting blanked out. A big section of it, just to the left of center. And I was also having a lot of mental confusion about where I was at. So I was missing exits on the highway. I just constantly had this feeling that I was 2,000 miles away in a city that I'd never been to before. I did a couple of cross-country trips last summer. Went to Oklahoma City, went to a town in southern Indiana for a sharpeners conference there. And so I like getting off the highway and hunting for salons and stylists that I can sharpen scissors for along the way. So there's a certain feeling to being in a city that you've never been in before. And it's kind of fun. I enjoy it. Well, it wasn't so enjoyable in August where I'm only 5 miles from home and I feel like I'm in the middle of Kansas. And the eye problem and the mental confusion was hitting me every single day. I've had some problems in my left-hand field of view for at least 30 years, but it only hits me maybe one, at most 2 different days in the year where I'll notice I can't quite see. I can't read the left-hand side of my screen when I'm on the computer. And historically, it's always been followed by a migraine headache. And this is well known. It's called a visual aura. And a lot of people that have migraine headaches get a visual disturbance before the migraine. So that was well known. But in August, where that visual disturbance started hitting me every single day, and I was no longer getting the migraine, instead I was finding myself feeling like, even when I was near home, that I was in the middle of Kansas or something. And I was having a lot of trouble to plan routes. I parked my car in a city called San Rafael near where we live, which is a reasonable sized city. And I just needed to walk 2 blocks from my car to go visit a hair salon that I thought they might need me to do some sharpening for them. I found myself during the walk panicking whether I could find my car at the end of visiting the salon. I knew it was only 2 blocks away. I could recognize the names of all the restaurants and businesses I was passing. But I'm still feeling the panic in my body, the anxiety of whether I'd be able to find my way back to the car. And they gave me some scissors because I was fine when I got in the salon. Talked to the stylist, checked their scissors, found they had 2 or 3 that needed sharpening. And then as I'm walking back to my car, just 2 blocks in a straight line, I'm getting anxiety. Okay, once I finish sharpening these scissors, will I be able to find my way back to the salon? That's the weirdest feeling in the world to have. That morning I experimented with doing some sharpening of some of my own scissors. I found I could sharpen them without chopping my hands up, so I knew I could see well enough to do that. So I had no doubt that I could do a good job on their sharpening. But the navigation issue was very, very disturbing. They did an MRI. of my brain in late August of last year. But because it was an outpatient setting, I went to the clinic and they were evaluating me to try to decide, did they need to send me to the hospital or could they send me home? They ended up sending me home and then scheduled me for an eye doctor 2 months later, scheduled me for an MRI several weeks, 2 or 3 weeks later. And the eye doctors found nothing wrong with my eyes. They had the MRI done, and still I have no advice from an actual doctor of what was going on. So I started experimenting with getting really strict on a plant-based diet. I've always kind of been mostly vegetarian, as you probably know from my visits. I don't eat very much meat. But I finally decided to really totally cut that out, and cut out cheese, and cut out sour cream, cut out butter, cut out as much oil as I could from my diet. So no more eating things with ghee in them. No more loading up my baked potato with sour cream and butter and cheese. No, learn to eat potatoes plain or with just some salsa on them. Started eating about 3 potatoes a day instead of snacks and things. I'd have a potato instead, just a plain potato. And so I had the MRI in August. In November, a couple months later, a doctor calls me and said I had a narrowing artery in the back of my brain, in the back on the right side, which explains why I was having problems with my left-hand vision, because the left-hand vision is processed in the back right of the brain. Right-hand vision is processed in the back left of the brain. So that made some sense. But the doctor said, I can't tell you any details on this narrowing in your brain. I have to send you to a neurologist. And it may take a while for you to get into the neurologist. It'll take time for the insurance to approve the referral. It'll take time for then the neurologist to be able to schedule you. Well, it turned out it was going to be almost a year before I was going to be able to get into a neurologist. They're all so backed up. Their schedule books are so backed up. And so I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go a whole year before I get more details about this problem that they're seeing in my MRI. And, but by that point, I was having relief from the visual problem. I was having relief from the navigation issues that I was experiencing. And by the end of the year, I had lost 35 pounds between August and December, and lost it without it coming back. A lot of times when people go on diets, their weight goes down and then it yo-yos back and it goes down, and then they ease up, and sometimes they go even heavier the next time before they get strict. It goes down, then it yo-yos to even worse, and then it goes down. No yo-yoing, okay? I found lots of new foods that I enjoyed eating, where I just didn't have time to eat the stuff I wasn't supposed to be eating anymore. And yeah, it took some willpower control. I understand Joshua was able to go for the whole season of Lent without eating any meat. Congratulations, Joshua. Very good. So it turns out I didn't get in to see the neurologist until June last month. Well, actually, now I guess it's April for you guys, but it's still March for me. I didn't get to see a neurologist until February 27th. And she starts asking me, has anybody talked to me about a stroke? I'm like, stroke? No, nobody's ever mentioned that word. No. She says, you had one. I said, seriously? Prove it. I got a little combative with her. I didn't like that news. She pulled up my MRI and went paging through, because an MRI is like a series of slices through the brain. So she's going up through the layers like this, got to around here, and you didn't have to be a neurologist to see this nasty white area at the back of my brain that did not belong in that picture. She says, there's the tissue that you lost due to the stroke, and it was mostly over on the right side. I told her, I said, I've been able to restore my vision problem by going on a plant-based diet. And I think what caused the problem to get triggered in August is during the 2 cross-country drives I went on, I ate way too much carryouts. I would get a veggie platter from Walmart each day, a whole bunch of celery and carrots and, different things like that to eat. And I'd eat a whole party veggie tray each day. But I was still having my Taco Bell with cheese on it and sour cream on it. I would always have them put black beans instead of the beef on the tacos or the burritos, but I was still having the cheese. I was still having the sour cream. And most days when I'd stop in different truck stops to get gas, I'd get 2 or 3 hard-boiled eggs a couple times a day. So I was eating 3 to 6 eggs, hard-boiled eggs a day. The equivalent of all that extra cheese each day, those extra eggs each day, was the equivalent of eating the cheese omelet that clogged the camel's artery. Meat, eggs, cheese, dairy, well known to cause extra deposits in our arteries. And getting the news that I had a narrowed artery, eating extra artery clogging things during those summer trips, probably gave me just enough extra narrowing of that artery that certain parts of my brain were no longer getting enough blood flow, and they basically were stopping working because of lack of blood flow. A stroke is an interruption to the blood flow to your brain. You can also have a bleeding stroke where an artery, an aneurysm or something pops, causes bleeding. Well, that bleeding causes pressure on the brain, but it also helps interrupt blood flow. So again, tissue gets lost if that problem continues for very long. And so meanwhile, from August until February, several months went by before I got the news of what had actually happened to me in August. And I told the doctor that I believe I've been able to cure the vision problem and the navigation problem with the plant-based diet, because when you go on a plant-based diet with no added oils, that diet is well known to clear out deposits in arteries. And people start getting benefit on that diet. Excuse me. A measurable improvement within 8 to 10 weeks, which was where I was at when the doctor called me in November and said I had a narrowing in an artery, but he had to refer me to a neurologist. Neurologist has a different theory on causes. She believes something in my body may be causing blood clots that are traveling to my brain. So I'm now wearing a heart monitor on my chest right there, which is taking 2 weeks of measurements of my heart rhythms. And I get to take that off, I think it's tomorrow night, and put it in a box and send it back to the company so they can read my heart rhythms for the last 2 weeks and see if they find any kind of odd rhythms in my heartbeat. Because odd rhythms can cause blood to pool up in the heart if your heart isn't beating normally, and that can cause blood clots to then travel to the brain. They also, so the doctor had told me, you lost tissue for your left eye in your brain that handles your left-hand vision. You may every now and then see an echo of that problem. But if you see a problem in a new part of your vision, be very concerned. Get it checked out right away. So a couple of Sundays ago, I was sitting at breakfast with Jonathan, and I realized, and I was sitting down to concentrate on taking my blood pressure, because I've been noticing my blood pressure readings lately have been really good. In fact, going in the realm of being too low. And that started concerning me that maybe I was being over-medicated for my blood pressure, because the Whole Foods plant-based diet with no added oils will also help bring blood pressure under control. It's a good non-drug way to control blood pressure. So I realized, hey, I'm getting those benefits too from the plant-based diet. And being on my old dose of blood pressure medicines it occurred to me maybe I was being over-medicated. So I was sitting at breakfast because I was wanting to really sit and focus on my blood pressure, and I realized something didn't appear right in my right-hand vision. It's not like the vision was totally blocked out, but it was a little fuzzy, just right of center. And I said, uh-oh. Not as bad as the previous problem. In fact, I had to sit there for a little bit and try to figure out, am I really having a problem here, or is it my imagination? I finally told Sarah, I said, as soon as Jonathan takes off for Bakersfield to go home, I need to go to the ER and get this checked out. So I went to the ER, and usually going to emergency room here in the States is a sit and wait forever experience. Within a couple of minutes, they had me in a room, and within a minute of talking to the doctor, an announcement goes out over the public address system. They make an announcement about my arrival to the whole emergency room department. But the announcement was, attention please, stroke alert, room 4. Attention please, stroke alert, room 4. Attention please, stroke alert, room 4. By the fourth time they said it, there was half a dozen extra nurses in my room, in addition to the doctor. 2 nurses on my left arm, putting in an IV inside my left elbow. 2 nurses on my right arm, putting in an IV on the inside of that elbow. Another nurse reaching over the top of them to stick pads all over my chest for EKG. And the doctor's asking me if I wanted to try a clot buster medicine, which had an 8% chance of giving me a brain bleed. And I'm like, that's a hell of a choice. I come in here with a suspected stroke, and you're going to give me a medicine that has an 8% chance of making sure I have a bleeding stroke? What kind of choice is that? And the doctor kept asking me, when did you first experience the vision problem? I said, well, while I was sitting at breakfast. He says, when was that? It was an hour and a half earlier. He said, when did you get up? Did you notice it when you got up, when you first got up? I said, I don't recall noticing it when I first got up. Well, when was that? That was 2.5 hours ago. I said, I'm not sure if I noticed it when I first got up. I said, even while I was sitting at breakfast, I sat there going, am I seeing something, or is something really happening? Is this my imagination, or is something really happening? It took me a little while to determine, yeah, there was something wasn't right, because it was very subtle. But he kept pestering me to identify exactly when I first saw the problem. I could not guarantee him that the problem wasn't actually happening when I first got up. It's just I hadn't noticed it yet. And the reason why this was important, clot buster drugs for a stroke need to be given within a very short time after the stroke. If they wait too long, the clot buster drugs are of no benefit. And there's a lot of risk associated with them, as the doctor had explained. And I'm like, I just don't know. I don't know enough on this to refuse the treatment. So they did a CAT scan, which was scanning what was happening in my arteries and in my head. And they identified that I didn't have any kind of a bleeding stroke, so they were able to rule that out. And then they wheeled a neurologist in on a video cart, and we had a video conference. And the video conference neurologist watched the doctor check my eyes and check my field of vision and different stuff. And that neurologist decided I was not a candidate for the clot buster drug. Whew, glad somebody took that off my plate. But they said, we've got to admit you for a day because we got to give you an MRI, but we can't get you in for that until tomorrow. So we're going to watch you for a day. And when I had the MRI, this is my 3rd MRI in my life, the 2nd in 6 months, the doctor was in my room within an hour. He said, we found some new damage on this side of your brain, the parietal lobe. Now, that's a different part of the brain, very near the center, okay? And that's where a lot of our language abilities are at. So the whole time I'm in the hospital, I'm trying to have fun with the experience, of course. And I would ask all the doctors and nurses, I'd say, you did check my chart, and you do know that I identify as an 11-year-old, correct? Because I'm hoping if I behave myself, can I get a sticker? Hey, I started winning popsicles out of some of the nurses and doctors, man. Yeah, man. 11-year-old likes a popsicle better than a sticker any day. Anyhow, within an hour of the MRI, the doc came up to my room, showed me some new damage, a very small spot. He went up through the layers of the brain. And we actually weren't able to find the old damage in the back, which was interesting. We knew kind of generally where to look, but there was a new spot. And that's very near language centers that help us learn language and language arts and things like that. Fortunately, as you can tell, I have no problems. Now, I started wanting to make a song about the experience, and I only write funny songs, but I couldn't find good lyrics to make a funny song out of. One that I kept thinking of was a song that goes something like this. Once, twice, 3 times a lady. And I'm thinking, no, wrong song. I'm not ready to sing about my third stroke yet. This is only the second one. So that was the wrong song. I'm thinking maybe Queen. Bump, bump, bump. Here's another stroke. Dun, dun, dun. Anyhow, something like that. But anyhow, still working on those lyrics. Luckily, again, I have no long-term paralysis. I seem to have no problem with short-term memory. No long-term memory issues. My ability to understand language is fine. My ability to write and make jokes is fine. In fact, the nurse that was wheeling me to the MRI, I asked her, I said, I heard that a lot of famous dancers get insurance on their legs, and the top singers get insurance on their voice. Do you think I can get insurance on my humor circuitry? We weren't sure. I got to maybe talk to an insurance agent about that. But in any event, I'm very lucky and very blessed on this. And what is the long and short of this? The long and short of this is I think I've come out a lot better on these issues because of my dietary changes. Being willing to sacrifice some foods that I really loved, get serious about eating the right kind of diet, and I'm accumulating the consequences of better decisions. I can think more clearly now with the lost weight. Now I want to exercise. In fact, I was just trying to go to the gym today, but the gym is closed. And in the context of Easter, when we think about the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, Jesus gave up everything for us to pay the price for us. And if we can spend more time thinking about the cross and the message of the cross and the sacrifice that Jesus was willing to make, and the fact that he told us, no matter what we go through, he's been through the same kinds of things. He is truly our brother in any affliction that we have, any temptation that we have. He had the same things and worse. He got put to death for his faith. Okay? He had faith that he was our Messiah. He had to learn about that from reading the Bible. Again, that's a good hint to the rest of us where we should spend some time every day prayerfully studying the Bible to recognize what does God have for each of us. And again, contemplating the cross, contemplating what Jesus did for it, contemplating how he learned it. Because Jesus was so much like us. He took on our human form to show the universe that he could be victorious and not have to pay the price of his own sins. Instead, he could be a sacrifice without blemish to die on the cross to take our place, if we'll accept that. But Jesus was so human in taking on our body. He never used his divinity to benefit himself. He never did anything to make his time easier. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, it's recorded that Jesus prayed to the Father. He says, I don't know if I can go through this. Because Jesus couldn't really see beyond the cross. He knew what was predicted in scriptures of him, But the idea of being separated from his father for the 3 days he was in the tomb was just utterly incomprehensible to him. The depth of that rejection, of having to experience God turning his back on him and leaving him to lay on the cross for those, from Friday until Sunday morning. He couldn't imagine it because he was so close with the Father. He was so reliant on power from the Father. So we see his prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he says, Lord, not as I will, as thy will. Would you please take this cup from me? I don't know if I can handle it, Father. But not as I will, thy will be done. So he totally surrendered to his Father, even though he couldn't fully grasp the enormity of what he was going to go through. He still left it in the Father's hands. So that's excellent encouragement for us. We are promised in the Bible that all the power that made Jesus a victor over sin, and believe me, Satan worked hard to tempt Jesus. He worked hard with the people around Jesus to try to talk him out of what he was doing and find problems with what he was teaching us, because he came to show us God the Father. He came to show us God in human form, and he made a lot of sacrifices to do so. We know from that we have all the same power available to us to make whatever sacrifices God calls us to make, to go through whatever tribulations that are allowed to happen, that the Satan tries to throw at us, that he cooks up using sometimes best friends to make our walk difficult. We know that we can rely on Jesus, prayer to Jesus. He will take our prayers to God the Father, and we are assured that we serve a Father in heaven who wants better things for us than we can imagine. So I'm very happy that God just tapped me on the shoulder about my health twice now, to get my attention, to pay attention to what he's told me I should do for my health. And I'm reaping the rewards of it. So I think one of my missions is to share this with other people, to encourage them to go through the sacrifices, to encourage giving up their appetite to God. Let God have control. Let God help rewrite your heart so that you find a proper diet and all the other things that are necessary to have a closer walk with God, to do the things that he needs you to do in your life that you uniquely are suited to do, that your brother or your sister can't do, because they're in a little different sphere. They have their work to do in their sphere. God has a work for you. And God wants you to be around on this life, not 7 extra years from a good dietary and exercise lifestyle. It's not just 7 years of extra life on average. He wants those 7 years to be productive so that your health span, not just your lifespan, but your health span is extended, because he's got work for every one of us to do. We're not called to sit around lazy and wait for his second coming. The parable of the banquet feast, where there wasn't enough people to fill the banquet. And so the master of the house sent his servants out to the highways and byways to collect more people to come in so the banquet table could be full. Many of us worry, am I going to be at the banquet table? Am I going to get to the banquet table? Am I going to have a seat at the banquet table? That's not where we're at in that story. We're the workers who invite others to the banquet table. Our place is already assured. We need to have faith in that. Now our job is to not just sit at the banquet table waiting for the banquet to begin. Our job is to invite others with the benefits, and be able to show them a life filled full of blessings and miracles that we wish for them to experience too. So on those thoughts, thank you for letting me share this. Sarah's had a lot of fun learning new ways to cook that are more healthy for us. And so she's doing a good job of life-proofing herself through her changes in diet. that she's having a ton of fun finding new things to cook. We have so many new recipes that we enjoy. We don't have time for the bad things we used to eat. And I'm sure all of you can ask Sarah for more details on these kind of things. You don't got to make every change in a day. You can do it gradually over time. But better choices, little by little by little, they accumulate and lead to new habits that become stronger and more healthy. So on that note, I want to thank all of you for honoring Easter, honoring the sacrifice our Savior made. Take it to the next level. Be willing to study the Word. Find out. Pray hard. Pray hard. You might have to struggle with God. You might have to wrestle with God. Wrestle with Him. Lord, what is it you want me to do? Show me your will. Make me strong to do the mission you have for me to do. And give me the health and energy so that I can do it, so I can be effective and be an effective witness to others so that they'll want to be part of the banquet feast also. So God bless all of you, and love you all. Looking forward to seeing you soon. If you have any questions about any of this, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer. But thanks for giving me a little time in your day to reach out. And life's good. The Lord is good. I praise Him for the miracles that I've experienced here. And I know He's got more in store for me and in store for all of you. God bless.